Cool. So, hey James, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
I am all good, thank you. I'm all good. So today we're talking about AI interoperability and MCP.
Indeed. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, how I ended up using it, and yeah, what I think it could be good for today.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I'm still learning a lot about MCP and just interoperability in general. So I'm very much a noob in this space. But I've been following your posts on LinkedIn and the sort of cycle of learning you've gone through from like seeing it and being like, this might be of interest to actually, this is really, really interesting. And this is why we should be paying attention to it. So,
Yeah. Well, I was very skeptical at first because I'd already been using OpenAI structured outputs, I've been using function calling, I've been writing a lot of bespoke software which integrates with LLMs, and I thought, what is the point of all this MCP stuff if you can just do function calling? So I kind of left it alone for quite a while and just sort of saw it kept bubbling up on LinkedIn, lots of people saying it's going to change the world.
mm.
And, you know, the the hype is yeah, quite high, isn't it? There's lots of people bigging it up. So I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. Um, Pretty skeptical. Downloaded Claude Desktop, got myself a subscription, and I started plugging in um, some off the shelf MCP servers. So I grabbed one for Google Calendar, one for Playwright, which is like Microsoft's official browser MCP.
Mm.
I had a bit of a play around with it, and it, I was quite shocked actually. I was like, actually, I can kind of see how this could work. I asked it to go find some like race times because I'm working on a horse racing project at the moment. Find some race times, put it in my calendar, and it went off to the web and then put it in my Google Calendar. And I was like, okay, so it kind of can integrate these two things together without any knowledge of how to do that ahead of the time.
Mm.
Um, and that's when I started building my own MCP servers, as you know. So I use things for Mac, like all my life, everything in my brain goes in that app as a to-do list.
Mm.
So what if I gave Claude access to that? So I just wrote a really tiny MCP server which can look at my tasks today and add new tasks. And even that was just like amazing because it's like
Mm.
it could see my calendar and it could see my to-do lists, and now it'd be like, well, you've got a conflict here and you need to prep for that. You've got a note here, but you're missing a to-do item here, and it can kind of help you think through stuff. Um, and yeah, I think it just started to sort of like set off loads of little thoughts in my head around like how this could work.
Mm.
It's kind of yeah, it's almost like a sort of gateway drug into AI. It's not. It's if I was building an AI app, a chat interface was possibly not my go-to, but like as an AI assistant for your own work, which has access to all the things that you do, I think it's really
Mm.
interesting.
So, do you think this is going to be the sort of making of AI to the masses in terms of like, think about the early adoption of some of the like, key services in history, like AI interfaces, developer experience, getting people to interconnect these things and making, new use cases for them and things like that. Do you think this is sort of where MCP is at the moment, or are we already past that?
I think MCP today is a bit too technical for the general user,
Yeah.
but because the developer ecosystem is growing, swelling, getting used to how best to use it,
Mm.
I think we're on the cusp of it going mainstream. It
Nice.
feels like it just takes a couple of big players to go, here's an MCP store,
Mm.
off you go. Um, it
Nice.
feels different than the first OpenAI sort of store, if you like. 'Cause remember, you could add different apps in, and it was
Mm.
kind of a bit slow and not didn't have the best sort of use cases. It wasn't so easy to use. It spent a lot of time thinking before
Mm.
it managed to call the tool. Yeah, the Claude Desktop MCP experience is really good.
I
Um,
think you're first of all incredibly brave to give access to you. So my to-do list is sacred. Like I also use things, and I like how you can interface with things. By the way, it uses a URL protocol, doesn't it, to sort of trigger additions and creating events and stuff.
yeah, for adding, yeah, and then I use a Python command line tool to get stuff back out, which I think it just connects directly to a read-only version of your the SQLite database that powers things.
Nice.
But
That's cool.
that's actually the way I've done a lot of my MCP service. So the journaling app I used day one, that's just a little SQLite database. You connect to it, and query into it. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty happy giving Claude access to quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Possibly less risk averse than most, maybe, but
What so yeah, because that's one of the things, right? To experiment and to really see the value of it, you need to do stuff like give it privileged access to your calendar, give it access to your to-do list, potentially modify that stuff. Mistakes happen. Some things could be, irreversibly like altered. What gives you that feeling of comfort to take that risk? Is it just that you're a technologist and you want to do that, or is there something that Claude's done to give you that confidence or trust?
yeah. So each tool within a server has a permissions dialog. So you get for each conversation, you get like an allow once or allow always. So like a lot of tools will be just like read only, like list events for today, or list to do items or whatever. Whereas
Mm,
actually when it's sending an email, or if it we've got a Webflow MCP, so it can actually publish changes to a Webflow site. But yeah, that's a separate allow dialog for each of those.
nice.
Um, and because it is within the conversation flow, it feels like you're quite in control, similar to how Cursor IDE or a coding assistant, you're sort of working with it to use the tools rather than sort of letting it blindly go off and
Nice.
do
So,
stuff.
so when you're talking about that sort of permissions model, it feels to me a little bit like the sort of OAuth grants where you have different sort of variants of permissions or different sort of breadths and depths of permissions you grant to apps. Is it similar to that in terms of how you go through that approval process?
Yeah, it's similar, but it happens as frequently as you want it to. So um, yeah, for anything that does an action
Mm,
that could affect someone else, I would probably hit the always ask me or only once button, allow this only
nice.
once, because you want to know. You
Yeah.
want to know when you're pushing that per conversation because it's quite contextual to the conversation. Well, with OAuth, you're like, connect these two apps, off you go, do what you like.
Yeah.
With AI agents and LLMs, you kind of want to work with them,
Mm,
um,
nice.
and
Nice.
it's not loads of friction. It's just a click. So it's like look at it,
Yeah.
click it.
Yeah, you want it to guide you through it and do the sort of hard work, the grunt work, but you want to be like, okay, you're about to do something that I actually care about now. Let's just double check that and make sure it's all good.
Yeah, that's it. It feels pretty natural. And
Nice.
I think yeah, obviously there's a load of stuff out there on the internet about MCP, and probably the best place to learn about it is have you heard of deeplearning.ai, the website with load of courses
I
on and stuff?
haven't. No, I haven't.
So they have a free course which is, I think it's sponsored by Anthropic, but
Right.
it's a really good short course, I think a couple of hours, and it's like an introduction to MCPs, and it goes into a bit more detail.
Mm,
But yeah, a few people at Parallax have been doing this, and I definitely recommend checking that out. Um,
nice. So yeah, so I guess so you're learning from MCP for the first time. That course is a good sort of primer. You can understand the fundamentals of how it sort of plugs together. After that course, are you going to be able to sort of get hacking, or do you need to sort of go and learn about other aspects of how to start building servers, how to start sort of plugging Claude into that, or is it all quite intuitive?
it's pretty intuitive. It's how it works underneath is it uses standard input output to pipe JSON in and out. So it's JSON on a single line. So you have
Mm,
a JSON action going in, and then it responds with a JSON response. And it can have text or other actions. You can push images in as well if you wanted
nice.
to push that into the UI. Um, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I think it is quite. You probably do need developer experience. You need to know if you're downloading custom MCP servers that connect to services that you might know, like Google Calendar or whatever,
Mm.
you're probably going to want to run those services yourself and have your own um, Google credentials or um, local sort of desktop OAuth creds, which are a bit fiddly. If you're not a developer, you're probably going to get stuck on those at the moment, unless you get a third party to relay it for you,
Mm.
and that's the risky bit, isn't it? So there's like the services like is it NAN, where you log in with your Google or whatever that end, and it's almost like Zapier for AI agents. The
Yeah.
downside there is they've got admin access, or they've got more access than you'd want to all your
Mm.
stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the areas where you're seeing all the sort of the hype of vibe coding is real, right? And you're seeing all this stuff kicking off. But you've got people who are predominantly from a non-technical background trying to get quite deep into some of the technicalities of how this stuff works. And I think that's one area where you could definitely feel like the unknowing individual could be exploited in quite a negative way. I assume when you say you sort of run the server locally, it's just like you do normally in terms of, like clone a repo, like you just set some mvars and you probably like spin up a node server or something similar, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can spin up a node server yourself for testing, but apps like Claude Desktop will spin up that server when you open the desktop app. So you have a
Oh, okay.
config file, which is just some JSON, and it has these are all the MCP servers that I've got. This is how you run it. So npx, package name, whatever.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, ideally you find a node version that makes sense. It runs in a particular folder, and you pass the mvars in that way.
Nice.
Um,
It's interesting that. So why does Claude manage all the processes that run the servers? Why are they not just separate instances that you can sort of maintain yourself?
so they are separate instances, but on boot, it'll run lots of different node MCP servers for you. So
Right.
it'll iterate through everything in that MCP JSON and boot them all up. Similar with Cursor IDE, it does
Okay.
exactly the same thing. So
Because it wants to control its own instances to make sure it's sort of working in that environment.
it, yeah, it basically runs because it runs over standard input output. That's how it connects.
Right. I see. I understand. Yeah.
There is another way of using it over HTTP, which is a little bit more involved and needs some authentication. But it isn't as well supported inside Cursor and Claude right now. I
Right.
imagine there'll be a day in probably how quick these things move, probably in a few months, where you just have a dialog box, you fill some details in, press go, and they're all connected up. But
Nice.
yeah,
Nice. So we've sort of gone through the setup of it and sort of the basic premise of MCP. What else do we sort of need to know about in terms of like getting up and running with this or starting to experiment with it?
I think I think yeah, it's worth just giving it a go. I think you need to be careful about scope, security. Um, Obviously, don't play around with data that you don't have permission to use with AI tooling.
Mm.
Um, so I haven't connected my um, email inbox for various reasons, but one is I'm not sure if the content in there
Mm.
is all suitable to be slung into an AI. Whereas I know that my calendar is public to everyone in the company, and it's generally meetings, and that kind of thing seems lower risk to me.
It's
Um,
it's all meetings. Yeah.
yeah, it's just status meetings. Yeah,
Stand-ups.
yeah, that's it.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so basically if you want to start experimenting, just think about the data sets, think about like your permission to share and integrate and all the usual sort of checks and balances, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's going to get really interesting when people are able to make these kinds of um, tools work within bigger tools that are available within a company.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I can see a world where you almost have an MCP store for
Yeah.
your organization with approved, vetted MCPs that access stuff in the correct way, and it's all audit logged, and you know what's going where and when. We're quite a way off that yet, but yeah, it's surely around the corner, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited for this. Firstly, because you've got me excited about it by showing me some of the prototypes you've done and some of how these different systems can interact with each other. I'm really excited in terms of what this can mean for Genio, because ultimately there's a really big challenge we have in terms of a fragmented ecosystem, the way in different institutions and different systems interact with each other. And yeah, I just see some real power in how these different systems can talk to each other through AI. Because I think some of the more traditional interfaces through LMS APIs and so on is much harder to integrate, much more costly to integrate. Feels like this new sort of common language that's emerging could be really powerful. So yeah, really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. I think the big mental shift that developers and, well, yeah, users are going to have to get around is that this is almost uh, acting on behalf of you, which is
Mm,
quite different from like computer to computer um, API integrations. I think trying to get the permissions model right, where you still have that human in the loop and it's acting as me, as James Hall, and I've done this thing on this other system. I think that's going
mm.
to be really important. Um, the thing that I developed once I've got a bit more familiar with how it all worked was to scratch an itch. So it was taking the Paprika app, which I never mentioned to you, do I? It's a bit of a
There's
running joke.
there's a running joke because there's a cooking app which you store all of your recipes in, and you've mentioned it must have been 2,000, 3,000 times maybe,
Yeah,
and you
to
got
the
so
point
sick
where,
of us not having it, you bought it for us.
yeah, I had to buy it for you because you just, yeah, you wouldn't do it otherwise.
I'd like to say
um,
that I use that app daily, but I'm afraid I haven't quite got the usage out of it that I would
ah,
hope.
that's okay. I'll forgive you.
I'm working on it.
But I put all my the grocery, it's called grocery list in there, but yeah, shopping list basically in there.
Mm.
And I wrote a little MCP server for that, so I reverse engineered the Paprika app by just yeah, man in the middle attacking it, so looking at the requests. And then I made another MCP server for the Sainsbury's app doing the same thing. So installed a root certificate on my iPhone, looked at some of the requests, and actually the ones to search for products and add to basket is super simple. So I described those tools in the MCP server, and yeah, Claude is more than happy. 3.7 Claude was more than happy going through that grocery list, looping around, finding all the items on Sainsbury's and adding it to cart. And even with the wonky Sainsbury's search, like it was looking for like a very specific dry white wine, and Claude, just without teaching it, knew to broaden the search out and out until it could get a big list, and then it selected the perfect one for that recipe,
That's cool.
which is pretty mind blowing.
Yeah.
So even if the APIs aren't perfect, if you return errors, it'll have another go,
Mm.
and that's quite interesting. But yeah, I think they're just going to get quicker and more efficient, and there'll be a tipping point where it becomes like, okay, now this is usable by non-devs.
So is
Um,
that so with that example there though? So you've got permission to go get the shopping list, add anything to the basket. At that point where it commits to a purchase, then is that one of the examples where you'd be like, "Can you authorize this? This is what's going to happen. Are you okay with that? Hit go."
yeah, definitely. And I think
Right.
Google are working on like agentic shopping, aren't they, at the moment with that
Mm.
approval flow?
Yeah.
Um, I can see a point where you know your app becomes less important and your MCP server is the gateway in, like
Mm.
like kind of like the dream of open banking API, except that that's hindered for various reasons. But
Mm.
um, yeah, like you have to re-authenticate all the time, which it's got its heart in the right place, but it actually stops people using it. Um, but yeah, you could see a world where you're like, right, I've got my shopping app MCP, I've got this is my to-do list, and you just make it do the things that you want it to do.
Mm.
And
It's
yeah,
really interesting. So with that one, so or the hype machine is fully engaged with this one. You're seeing everyone saying, Google's going to bring in the death of the checkout page, and you'll never have to check out again, and all that sort of stuff. But
Hmm.
the interesting thing, and a prediction for me, is how this is going to come almost full circle, because you've got a situation where checkout pages and experiences are reasonably established. The UI and UX for them is reasonably established, and people sort of know what they're doing. And then we're going to have this new emerging trend of like, decentralized checkouts or one single interface to that across different stores. But there's still a need to have a consistent UX and a predictable UX. And I think there's going to be a situation where there's going to have to be like common design language that's almost going to have to come out. Maybe like, no, now every checkout has to work in this way because people don't really know how they work across different stores. Or, there's almost a benefit, I think, to having a specific experience for a specific brand or app. And
Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to come full circle a little bit where we'll see a re-emergence of that if this does take off.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as black and white as this kills that.
Yeah.
Just as ChatGPT is probably not going to kill search,
Yeah.
people are just going to search in different ways. And yeah, I think the shopping experience is so nuanced because different brands you do interact with them in very different ways. So
Mm.
yeah, like sports brands, you might go in store, try stuff out, and then shop online later. And yeah, it's not consumers aren't simple, are they? You don't know. Yeah, even with all the tracking in the world, you still don't know why or how someone's arrived at a purchasing decision. So
Mm.
I don't think, yeah, AI based shopping is going to kill everything. I think it's just going to be another thing that
Yeah.
some people will do, especially time poor people. They
Mm.
might buy, the stuff that you buy over and over. You like I think Amazon tried to sort this ages ago with those little buttons that you press.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
like a Tide button that you press and you get some washing powder delivered.
Yeah.
Um, but I think they had to can that, didn't they? But
Well, it turns out you don't want a kitchen full of buttons. So-
yeah, especially when you've got kids and they just press them all and then yeah, you
yeah.
get 20 boxes turn up at your front door. Um,
Yeah. Bit of an issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
It's
think
funny. I was just going to say on that. It's funny because like AI discourse is a bit knackered. I think at the moment, like, everyone loves a polarizing argument where something's either the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world, and the reality is somewhere in between, right? Which is that there's genuine use cases where things like this make sense, and it may or may not revolutionize industries. It's just you've got to give it a go and see what happens, right?
yeah, I mean the stuff that LLMs are really good at, like trying to take a fuzzy description of a thing and match it against a
Mm.
list of other potential things. It's quite good at, yeah. You can see when Apple finally nail LLM based Siri, like you
Mm.
just be able to reel off stuff that you need to buy and it'll go and get it for you. That will
Yeah.
totally happen. It's just when is it going to be good enough for them to ship in a secure way?
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's exciting. But is it going to change the world? I don't know. It might not have that bigger impact immediately. Driving to
Yeah.
work and reeling out a shopping list to a bot in your car is quite handy, but it's not fundamentally going to change my life, is it?
Yeah, I think it's probably the sum of a lot of different innovations, right? It's like this combined with Siri or other things, or like different interfaces to dealing with these. Like that's why I quite like the sort of agentic approach. It's like if nothing else comes of this other than a really powerful personal assistant that can really optimize the time we have in the day to do really valuable things, then that to me is a really amazing use case for this stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And it'll become so baked into everything that people forget what it was even like before. They're like, oh, you remember when you had to manually add all this stuff to your shopping cart? Like it'll just be a distant memory, and people won't
Yeah,
even understand how awkward it was. Um, so
yeah.
yeah,
It's the worst
but
part of
yeah,
our week. I,
yeah,
I hate it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I hate shopping in the supermarket. I think it's the worst thing ever. Like especially on a Sunday or like on a bank holiday or something, just before a bank holiday. It's just
Mm.
everyone's got exactly the same idea. They all need milk and cheese and whatever,
Yeah.
and they're all stood in your way. It's yeah, but
Yeah. Well, my hope is that we have sort of internal fridge scanners to see when I'm running out of milk and it just comes. That'd be ideal. I'd very much like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think
but
people have
yeah,
tried stuff like that, haven't they? Smart fridge stuff. Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, my feeling about smart things. Actually, I think I said about 10 years ago. I don't think we need a smart kettle, and I stand by that statement. But I think
yeah,
there might be a few things that are genuinely helpful.
yeah. I mean, yeah. No one wants to be the next Internet of shit post, but
Yeah,
I think, I think, especially around the stuff, especially around like calendaring and
mm,
rescheduling and stuff. Like if someone sends you an email saying, "Sorry, I can't make the 9 a.m." Uh,
mm,
but I can do tomorrow at whatever. If if you're happy giving an AI assistant some parameters to work within, like these are
mm.
my priority clients, this is my calendar, this is what I'd be happy with you doing. It could
Yeah.
just sort all that shit out for you while you're doing something else.
Absolutely, take my money. Like
Yeah.
Reclaim AI's claim to do that for me. It didn't work out for me. I know some people it does work out for, but I would happily pay for a product that solved all that calendar management hell.
Yeah, I think we're getting there. We're getting pretty close.
Yeah,
It's just the last 10-20% of quality that they need to eke out
yeah,
to actually make it work properly.
yeah. Nice, awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for running me through MCP. It sounds like something I need to start tinkering with. So yeah, cheers for running me through your to do list woes.
No worries. Yeah, great to chat and
Yeah.
see you on the next episode.